Travis Isbell is the esports coach here at Trine University. Coach, how are you?
Doing great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being here. I was reading your background today, and you've had an incredible career already, including playing professionally in Korea for a long time. I wanted to hear about that. What was it like to live and play in Korea?
Intense. Korea has a really strong work ethic, and so it really surprises you right away. You know, you kind of deal with that culture shock of going from doing something you love as a hobby and then having to do it 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. And so it can really make kind of like a contrast in your lifestyle, because you start to realize that the thing that you enjoy now becomes a profession, and you've got to take it seriously, but you've also got to perform.
Yep, so high stakes. You lived in California.
Sure.
You have moved now to Angola, Indiana. How did it end up where you would come to Trine University to take this job?
The long and the short of it is that Trine had an excellent esports program. I wasn't fully committed on leaving because I was running a program down in Kansas Wesleyan, which I was doing fairly good at. But Coach Land, kind of made me an offer I couldn't say no to. He really believes in the esports program, and he wants it to succeed. And I wasn't seeing that at Kansas Wesleyan. At Kansas Wesleyan, it was more of like they wanted to just use it as a facet to kind of engage their students, but not really heavily invest in it. But here at Trine, they're very invested in esports, and they want to see it succeed just as much as they want football to succeed, which is amazing.
How does esports add value to the students' experience at Trine University?
The students are going to be playing video games regardless, whether we have an esports program or we don't have an esports program. So they're most likely going to be playing in their dorm rooms. But what we're doing is we're getting them out of the dorm room, and we're getting them in a centralized location where they can meet people from all walks of life. And that heavily well-rounds the collegiate experience, because they're meeting people in fraternities, they're meeting dual sport athletes who are doing esports in like hockey, esports in football, and so it's further ingraining them in the collegiate experience, right? Because they make friends with people on the football team, now they're going to football games, and they wouldn't have necessarily gone to football games before. Travis
Isbell is the esports coach here at Trine University. Do you guys have practices? And if you do, what's a typical practice like for esports?
Most of the time they practice anywhere from 10 to 15 hours a week.
Okay.
So a typical practice can be a lot of different elements. For example, I'll take the game CSGO. Sometimes they work on just site locations, so like their roles. So it'd be just like an O-line working on different O-line drills. Then they also do team exercises where they have to secure things as a team and work on communication. And then the last final facet would be scrims. So they have kind of 3 different distinct target practices that they go through, whether it's scrim, whether it's team comp and communication, or if it's just position learning.
What are some of the games that our students are playing right now? What are some of the most popular esports games?
We're in GLEC, which stands for the Great Lakes Esports Conference, which we were kind of a founding member of, and we take a lot of pride being attached to. And within that, we have League of Legends, Overwatch, CSGO, and Rocket League. And those are our 4 primary games here on campus.
Well, I've played Rocket League, not very well, but that's a lot of fun. That one is probably harder than it looks, right?
It is, because, and one of the reasons, or we have a couple outside sport players like lacrosse and hockey, because there's transitional skills within both those sports that kind of help with Rocket League. In hockey, you kind of have that where you have line changes, right? You go on attack, your line changes, and then you have defense, and you have all this rotation. It's the same thing in Rocket League, where you'll have an attacker go up, and then the previous attacker falls back and either watches goal or plays defense.
You are an esports coach. What does a coach do for esports exactly?
I recruit a lot.
Okay.
I help a lot of other school programs that are getting started, but mainly my primary focus is on the players. I focus on just their overall collegiate experience, making sure they're not too overwhelmed with their classes, making sure practice itself is not too overwhelming with all the other things they have to juggle, like work or class load or any of the other activities they might be involved in, whether it's fraternities, other sports, student government, those kind of things. And so really I just try to manage the overall happiness of the experience, and hopefully my students are overall happy.
You were a games journalist at one time
Yes.
too. What was that like?
It was really interesting because that was what I kind of transitioned into from being a pro, because being a pro was just so labor intensive, right? We talked about that 16 hours, 6 days a week. The biggest problem that esports faces right now is player burnout. There was a story published by Forbes that was called 16 and out by 20. And so 4 years is not a lot of time for a professional career by any means. And so a lot of people transition into casters, they transition into journalists, they transition into event coordinators. And when I transferred into journalism, it allowed me to take my love for the game and kind of still be analytical about the game and participate in the same space.
Have you ever faced Ninja?
Have I ever faced Ninja? No. Unfortunately, we don't play the same games.
So Trine doesn't have a Fortnite team.
We do not.
Is there an esport set up for Fortnite or no?
There is, but it's very dependent on solo players.
Gotcha.
So we prefer the team aspect.
That's true, yeah.
Behind esports, because we're giving the students a lot of core skills when we put them in a team with other people. Rather than being in a duo, like if we put them with 5 other players, they're learning, team management, conflict resolution, and one very important skill that most people face, just learning how to deal with people you don't like, right? And that's a hard enough life lesson as it is.
One of my students, Marissa Boatwright, asked a really good question. She said, a lot of people play video games as a hobby or to relax or as a pastime. And you kind of already hit on this. For you, it was much more than that. It became a profession. So did you get sick of playing video games, and what do you do? Obviously, you don't play video games for fun if you're a professional.
Sure.
What do you do to kind of get away and relax?
That's a really good question, and there's 2 facets to that, because there's an on and off switch. When you are pursuing that, you can play the same game and pursue different things within the game. Like, we take a football player. He is on in practice, right? Learning his position, competing, etc. But in his spare time, he might play, touch or flag or something like that. And it still covers that hobby aspect, right? The fun side of the game.
Would you rather play or coach?
At this point, I'd rather coach, but sometimes while coaching, I kind of want to take control and play a little bit, because the one thing I miss about playing the most is that passion that you got while in the midst of everything, right? That strong desire to compete, to win, to get better, to develop, really.
When I toured MTI Center the first time, when I got home, the first thing I told my kids about was not the beautiful arena, but that esports facility. It really is a showpiece, isn't it?
And, Trine has heavily invested in esports at the campus, and that's something that I really appreciate, because it validates all these kids, and it says, hey, you may not be getting the support that you need at home, but we'll give you that support. And we'll make sure that you have all the resources available to you to pursue something that other people might not see as a legitimate sport. Because that's the conversation that I have with most parents on visits is, really? Video games?
I can see that. What's your all-time favorite video game?
It'd be the one that I went professional in, StarCraft 2.
StarCraft 2.
Yeah, it's called an RTS, a real-time strategy game, and it's really fun to play because it's kind of has aspects of being a coach. It's a very micromanagement based game. So for me, that's fun.
I was happy talking to Mason Nichols, one of your players, that you actually do have a Smash Brothers set up. And I'm a Nintendo guy, so Nintendo not totally left out, right?
Sure. And actually, one of our fastest growing teams is our Smash team.
Okay.
And some of the fraternities, like I believe it's Kappa Sig and Phi Cap have been having Smash nights for our Smash Brothers to engage in, to kind of get them interested in the Greek life.
I was at a meeting last week, and I heard that there will be a 2K tournament coming up later in the year. Now, my kids are really into 2K. That'll be a lot of fun, won't it?
Yeah, and this is actually a senior capstone project. So it's really cool to see that other departments are getting engaged with esports. And a lot of my esports guys it's reinvigorating that fire because they see the love for esports across the campus, not just in the MTI Center. And they love it because it kind of makes them feel kind of like celebrities.
Last question for Travis Isbell, the new esports coach here at Trine. So do you play road games, or do you just play, could you play like a team at a different campus from our facility here at MTI? How does that work?
We do both.
Okay.
So within GLEC, we play here at the campus. However, November 9th, we're traveling to Western Michigan, and we're playing them in an invitational tournament. We're going to be the only Indiana team. So it's going to be...
Represent.
Yeah. And the only other team that's outside of Michigan that we'll be playing is The Ohio State. So we'll get a chance to play against them too.
That should be fun. Travis Isbell is new to Trine. He is our esports coach, I think a sport that's really on the rise here at Trine University. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.